Chapter 14. Discharge your stress. While watching TV talk shows from time to time, it became more and more obvious to me that there are many hurting people in our society today. I've been pleased to observe the resilience that is innately prevalent in a good number of the guests on these programs. Many of them have suffered unjustly through the thoughtless actions of others, but their indomitable spirits rose to meet the challenges caused by their suffering, and they have overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles on their road to recovery. There are people who advocate that legislation be passed to eliminate the possibility of various bad things happening to them. These people would hope to save others from having to deal with negative conditions or challenges and suffering that they themselves have experienced. I can appreciate their concern, but no one should have to suffer at the hands of someone who is totally insensitive to their feelings, their property, or their dreams and aspirations. There also seems to be a prevailing attitude in this country today to let someone else take care of the problems. Of course, the large majority of us would like to feel that there is someone who has the power to remedy unfair or unjustified treatment. Once again, how many of us seem to think that the answers to the problems of life can come from outside themselves? In reality, each one of us has the answer to our own problems, and the answers are found inside ourselves. If each one of us would accept the plausibility that we do have it within ourselves to heal our own life, to take responsibility for our own problems and misguided efforts, it is possible that much of the human misery, alcoholism, ill health, drug abuse, gang violence, etc., in our society today could be minimized, if not eradicated. When we were in school and we knew that there would be exams, could we call upon someone else to come and take those exams for us? Where I went, we couldn't. I was the only one responsible for the scores and grades that I received. In like manner, I'm the only one who can design the causes that create the effects that I want in my life. People talk about being under a great deal of stress, or of something that is stressful to them. Stress is blamed for problems and sufferings by everyone. But how could one identify your stress or my stress? What is stress to one person may not be all stressful to another. In other words, what a stressor is to you may not be a stressor to me. Have you ever experienced your heart pounding, a knot in your stomach, extreme nervousness, insomnia, impatience, anger, or anxiety? Many people have come to accept these conditions as a part of getting through their day, and they label this stress. However, the effects of stress are much more insidious than many of us realize. According to Dr. Paul J. Roche, president of the nonprofit American Institute of Stress in Yonkers, New York, the stress in the United States is taking a terrible toll on the nation's health and economy. Stress contributes heavily to heart disease, respiratory distress, cancer, lupus, and numerous other life-threatening diseases. It is one of the major reasons for the astronomical healthcare costs in this country. And yet stress is very difficult to define because it varies with each individual. Stress and how we handle it can be tracked back to negative things and beliefs. Our focus is to locate what it is we're feeling as we are experiencing the stress and eliminate it. How? By taking the feeling through the script, identifying exactly the way you feel as you're experiencing the stress or stressor. Or you may want to ask yourself, what is this unresolved feeling or belief that is creating this stress? If it is impossible for you to process the feeling at the time you experience it, make a mental note of it so you can go back to it later in the day and resolve it. Interestingly, an article in April of 1987, Reader's Digest entitled Mind Over Disease, your attitude can make you well. Reports. Many researchers are now investigating the effect of specific emotions on the immune system. Psychologist Margaret Kemley of UCLA found reoccurrences of genital herpes correlated with feelings of depression. A husband and wife team at the Ohio State University School of Medicine documented vividly the injury the mental stress can do on a human immune system. Dr. Janice Keycolt Glacier, clinical psychologist, and virologist Ronald Glacier drew blood from 40 medical students at several points in the school year, and again during exam week. Stress played havoc with their immune systems. The activity of their natural killer cells waned, and their ability to manufacture interferon, a natural protein that inhibits viral infection, declined drastically during exams. So it was clearly no coincidence that the students reported suffering from more flu and colds. Another article from the same Reader's Digest entitled Daily Hassles Are Hazardous continues on the subject. University of Michigan sociologist Louis Verbrugge, who followed the daily lives of 589 men and women, found that daily irritations triggered bad moods, which in turn were followed by physical troubles. Studies among 210 Florida police officers showed that it wasn't the dramatic but relatively rare stress of apprehending criminals that caused the distress. It was the accumulation of everyday hassles, like too much paperwork, reports Charles Spielberger, a psychologist at the University of South Florida. Psychologist Arthur Stone at the Medical School of the State University of New York at Stony Brook found that minor daily stresses had increased 3 to 5 days before the onset of upper respiratory illnesses among a group of Long Island husbands. In an earlier study, Stone had 50 couples rate their daily experiences. The 5 most common hassles he found were conflicts with one's spouse, children or business colleagues, pressures at work, and personal problems. And he found that minor hassles were a better predictor of illness rates than were the major events from the past year. Just what are hassles? Notice the above paragraph stated common hassles and minor hassles. The dictionary states very simple, hassle, to irritate. So hassles are daily occurrences that irritate you, and when there are enough of them, they add up to stress. Why the irritation that causes the stress? Again, identify the feelings that are involved with your situation. It is easy to blame a lot of things on a nameless or faceless entity, using the name of stress and accusing it of being the culprit, then justify and excuse ourselves for our problems because we are the victim of this awful monster stress. In reality, what triggers or causes our stress or stressors are our unresolved feelings, our inability to identify those feelings, and our reaction to those feelings. When we perceive that something is becoming stressful to us, we need to stop immediately and locate the thoughts or the feelings that are associated with that stress. After we identify those feelings, the next step is to process them through the script. At this point, if you have identified the feelings accurately and replaced them in the script with appropriate opposite feelings, the stress you're experiencing will be unlocked, diffused, and dissipated. An example of a stress I experienced, one of the things that used to really irritate me was having to stand in any kind of line. This was especially true in the grocery store, when I only had 3 or 4 items to pay for. I don't know what it was that bothered me so much about that, but I would really boil inside. So you could say that this situation caused me stress. I finally decided to go through the script, just asking my spirit to please locate the origin of my feelings of irritation when I have to stand in line and why it makes me so mad. Replacing the irritation at the appropriate place with forgiveness of the situation and it's all right. It really doesn't matter. I feel calm and happy to be there. Guess what? After doing this a couple of times, stating the feeling a little differently the second time than I did the first time, standing in lines no longer bothered me, nor does it bother me today. It has been such a relief. This is the small example of how to work through something that stresses you. But regardless of whether it's a little or a big stress, it still works the same way. There are many situations in our lives that we just have to learn to make the best of, and we can accomplish this quite easily. Probably one of the major stressors in a metropolitan area is freeway traffic, especially at rush hour, when we find ourselves in a long line of traffic with no way out. We have a choice as to how we react in this stressful position. We can either sit there fuming and fussing, or we can be calm and unruffled, knowing that this too shall pass. Here again, the choice as to how we react in this unpleasant situation is ours. Are we going to choose inner peace or inner conflict? Uncertainty is said to be the public stressor number 1. This is undesirable. Uncertainty automatically presses the fear button. Fears of any and all kinds, and the mind can go wild with these fears. If you happen to suffer from the stress of uncertainty, zero in on the specific fears that they create in you and process them with the script, replacing the fears with faith in the future and anything else you feel would be appropriate. You may be surprised at your accomplishment. Better yet, go for the feeling of fear of uncertainty and process that with the script, replacing the negative with faith in the future or something similar. There's no need to be bothered by this stressor. As stated earlier, before you can do anything about the stress, it's necessary first to be aware of what you're feeling, what is going on inside of you. Or as Dr. Joan Borsenko says, be mindful. When your mindfulness identifies the feeling that takes you out of a peaceful, calm state, then you're prepared to process with the script. This allows your subconscious to uncover the memory of perfection and to transform the negative vibrations into positive vibrations. Process the negative feelings so they change to positive feelings, which brings the thinking and the feeling together, integrating the left brain and the right brain, unifying the conscious with the subconscious, bringing the two sides of the self together, thus allowing you to be single-minded. Let me emphasize that when you bring the conscious left brain and the subconscious right brain, part of your being together, peace ensues from the bottom of your feet to the top of your head. And when you are at peace with yourself and the world, the internal artillery stops firing. When you recognize your feelings of discomfort, uneasiness, irritation, or whatever the stressful feeling may be, you're identifying your negative feelings and owning them, admitting they are actually there. At this point, you are no longer in denial, and half the challenge is over. Upon locating the stress or stressors, you are on your way to eliminating them. You may want to go deeper to locate and identify several additional feelings that surround the stressful situation, so as to more solidly approach a resolution of them. Note, if the stress continues to be only because the stressor feeling has not been accurately or adequately identified. Keep searching until you claim victory. Freedom is just around the corner, and peace is the ultimate victory.